Welcome to Carolina Sculpture Studio. My name's Clint Button. I'm a granite sculptor. And welcome to video number 44 of the Virtual Stone Carving Apprenticeship. Took the final video, it was getting up near 40 minutes and split it in half. So hopefully you got a couple shorter videos to watch. Instead, this is the last video in this cross series. Marble carves really fast. Boy, you can blow through it. Finishes really slow. You just have to spend a lot of time, just tedious work, just getting down and sneaking up on it. So let's dive into the last installment of this reproducing this marble cross in Colorado Yule marble. Check it out. Develop your miter slowly. Don't leave a big bulk of stone on there, because if you hit it and it breaks, it could pull and mess up the plane. You want to keep this down to keep these edges short, to keep it strong. Just slowly work this panel back. Now, when you're down here working on this, you can work like this, and you can work like this carefully, but you can't work against that. That'll pop right off. So you can work your way up to it, and then erode away and erode down. But don't push against this, because that corner is a real liability. If we knock these off, they'll be a lot stronger. But let's push this all back and get this facet finished in the other two before I cut the corners off. all faceted. Now let's cut the bottom. Now to cut this bottom, what we're going to do is we're going to try to mark this. We're going to do a rough, I'm going to just sketch a rough 45 on each one of these edges here. Transfer it to the bottom, and I'm going to work it in from both. I'm going to cut this off, and I'm going to cut this off, and work this down so I don't have a big loss. Remember, we're going to bevel this up here. So if this crumbles, it's not as big a deal, but down here, this edge is going to be a finished edge. So we'll probably work this edge in very carefully, and then go ahead and contour it, you know, brick it, whatever, round it off so it doesn't chip. Still got to go back in with a stone and fix all this. You still got a witness right there where it's not quite down, and we still got to clean up these lines on the cross. But we'll go ahead and we'll mark these off approximately and work these corners off, and then put the bevel, and we'll be almost finished. I'll fiddle with these lines a little bit, but we're pretty close. That's it. Worked out pretty well. Was able to do some measuring and figured out that if these stay 1.5 inches that match this, these go out to 2 inches, and so that'll convey mass really well while maintaining continuity of the design. So now the next thing to do is find the pencil. We're going to go off the joint, mark down 1/2 inch, put a line all the way around, and tip it. Alright, it's done. Still need to do the abrasion work and everything. Go around and tune it all up. Now the carving's all done. Check it out. Now, of course, it's dirty I gotta make sure all my lines are good, but most of them should be abraded off anyways. See how that base fits it? That plinth fits it really well. It doesn't interfere in any way. I was able to keep these at 1.5, and these are 2. And so these right here are 1.5, so they're the same length. Then the angle's here. So I'll go through and abrade everything. I did leave a tiny step right there. I'd like to have that visual break to make it a little more obvious. What that'll do as this ages is it'll catch dirt fairly quickly, and it'll show. So it'll help make it look like it's the actual plinth, and it may not look as integral. But pretty happy with the way it's turned out, and everything's pretty consistent and pretty neat. So we'll now spend some time with the abrasives, which is just kind of a drag, but that's what you do with marble. Looks pretty good. This is a really good example of what I talked about with having certain areas that are tall or short. The center panel here is gathering the dust, and that means that all of this is just a tiny bit higher. So as we dress this down, this will become super flat. We can fix all of our facets, all of our edges. We have to make sure we don't lose the edges, don't push hard to where the edges, try to approach some of the more fragile edges. But this will draw down, we'll get rid of all of this dish, and that's why you've probably seen some areas that look like they're off, they're tall. This is tall right here. As this sinks, this is still crowned from here to here. This is pretty good and this is good, but this is crowned. As that pulls down, we'll straighten out the lines and get rid of a lot of this stuff. And this is the difference. Now, there are people that'll say you're supposed to cut it to perfection the first time and then never touch it again. That's always great, but little things happen along the way with natural stone that makes more sense to me to get everything put together and then go through and finish all the fine detail at once, because all this little bits of extra stone, this little wiggle in this line, that's helps ensure that you don't break it. If this was perfect, and then you got to pick over here, and then you chase it back here, I'd rather finish them to the very end, at the end, not at the beginning. So it's up to you. This is what I do. Do whatever you want. This should come out really well. This is just the green wheel. Save them. Ran down, it's a 1-inch green wheel I sharpened all my chisels with till it's too small. Don't throw it away. You paid for it. Use it. Keep it dressed on them. Just like everything else. Now, I'm using a clean, just a cloth, rag, whatever, but it's clean because my hands will stain this, and I want to keep this relatively clean as I'm dressing it. When I get done, I'll wrap it in film to take it to the retailer so they can install it. But there's no reason to get it dirty. This isn't like granite where we can acid wash it and everything comes off pretty easy as long as there's nothing serious on it. This is marble. It's a whole different ballgame. This will stain. This will be ruined. While you're doing this, you'll find a lot of small flaws if you did it correctly, and no big flaws, no big digs. I had a dig right in here. I also had a little dig right there. But especially on a corner, on a line, on a break, it's better to work it from one side and the other side simultaneously. And sometimes you have to leave a little bit of that flaw in order to maintain your overall dimension, but you'll camouflage it to the point that nobody will see it if it doesn't just disappear. Now this disappeared because I had a low spot here and we've just been working it down, but these ends are low. As I pull this down, it's squaring things up a lot, and just go slow. Now I've got my light turned away from me. I need some light, but not a lot, and so that's why I talk about it's important to be able to control your light so you have as much light as you need and no more. A lot of studios have abundant light, they have tons of light. It makes it really hard to wrap up work quickly, and I have to turn the light off for a lot of the video work because the camera adjusts automatically, and it's so hot y'all can't see anything. But work everything in to get it to match. Keep your stone dressed, and just keep working. And when you get to the end, go through and clean up all the facets. Now, because you want them to look even, but you got to also have a pretty consistent surface, because if you don't, say one of them is really straight, but it hasn't been bricked, it'll hold dirt differently. Now we could go over this whole thing with a chisel. You sharpen all these lines. The problem with that in terms of marble is this is already weak stone. That little cross is 100 and whatever years old. It's falling apart like it's junk. So we don't want to introduce anything that could create a stress riser. So we're just going to use a stone that's fairly sharp, and that's going to finish up everything. But we're working in indirect light to be able to see details and shadows. And imperfections. And we're doing it standing up because this is how it's going to be installed. Doesn't matter what it looks like laying down from the underside anymore. We're past that. You got to be really careful you don't drop it too at this point, because it only takes a little bit and it tips right off the banker, off your bench, off your stand, whatever you're working on, and party's over. Alright, let's check this out. It's done. All right, this is what I understand. I've been trying to research it and find it because the more I worked on it, the more familiar it was to me. This is something I believe I was told, not something that I read in a book, and I've not found anything on the internet. All that means is nobody put it on the internet. Nobody's put all this other stuff on the internet either. I understand this to be an abundant cross. And it's so called to be an abundant cross because no matter where you look at it, you've got a cross and a cross and a cross, and then an overall cross. You look at the ends and you've got a cross, but you've also got a cross there and a cross there, and everything. Everywhere you look, there's multiple crosses. So I understand this to be an abundant cross. That's the composition. So this is and this shows what I used. 2 hand machines, a couple of Kachuris, 3/4, 1 inch, and or 5/8 or whatever it is, a small one and a big one, 2 clawed tools, 2 smooth chisels, and a few bricks. And besides that, a ruler and a pencil and a straight edge, and that's it. That was just a 4-inch piece of stone. We produced an abundant cross. So it's tedious work, it's good exercise, good to learn how to do. I hope you give it a shot. I hope it taught you something. I hope you square a block of stone as practice, because it'll teach you how to do a lot of this. This is all panel work, and this is all about doing it in the proper order, making it come out great. My name's Clint Button. I'm a granite sculptor here at Carolina Sculpture Studio with the Virtual Stone Carving Apprenticeship. Thanks for coming in.